I'm not the type of person who scares easily. I've camped alone, hiked through storms, and once got stuck overnight in my car during a snowstorm in Wyoming. But nothing has ever gotten under my skin the way this did. This happened in October, a couple of years ago. My girlfriend Laura and I decided to take a short break from work and rent a cabin in rural Colorado. We found the place online, great reviews, peaceful location, perfect for disconnecting. It looked exactly like what we needed. The drive there was long, especially the last stretch. Dirt roads, no signal, nothing but trees. By the time we arrived, it was already getting dark. The cabin itself looked just like the pictures. Small, wooden, quiet, no neighbors in sight. At first, everything felt normal, cozy even. But the first strange thing happened within an hour. I clearly remember locking the front door after bringing our bags inside. I always double-check things like that. But when I walked back into the living room later, the door was slightly open. Just a crack. I thought maybe I hadn't shut it properly. Laura teased me about it. I laughed it off too. That was the last time I'd feel relaxed there. Later that night, Laura asked if I had gone through her bag. I hadn't. She said her clothes were slightly rearranged, like someone had dug through them. Again, we brushed it off. Maybe things shifted during the drive. But then it kept happening. Small things. Subtle things. Our toothbrushes moved from one side of the sink to the other. My jacket wasn't where I left it. A kitchen cabinet we hadn't opened was suddenly ajar. Each time, we found a simple explanation, or tried to, until the noises started. The first night around 2 a.m., I woke up to a faint sound. It was soft, almost like wood creaking. I figured it was just the cabin settling in the cold. Then I heard it again. Footsteps, slow, careful. Above, us. I sat up, listening. The cabin didn't have a second floor, just a small attic space according to the listing. No mention of it being usable. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. Laura was already awake. "Yeah." We both stayed completely still. Another step, then silence. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. We checked every room, every corner. Nothing. No one. All doors locked. The next morning, I messaged the host. He replied quickly, saying, the attic wasn't accessible and no one else had access to the cabin. He even seemed slightly annoyed, like we were overreacting. That should have reassured me. It didn't. The second night was worse. The footsteps came again, louder this time. Not just walking, shifting weight like someone pacing. At one point, there was a distinct thump, directly above the bedroom. Laura grabbed my arm so tight it hurt. "Someone's up there," she whispered. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. We turned on all the lights and stayed awake the rest of the night. The next morning, I started looking more carefully around the cabin, not just casually, really looking. That's when I noticed something off about the closet in the bedroom. The back panel didn't look right. The wood was a slightly different shade, and the nails looked newer. When I pressed on it, it moved. My stomach dropped. I told Laura to step back. I pulled at the panel, and after a bit of force, it gave way. Behind it was a narrow opening, just big enough for a person to crawl through, and it led upward. The smell hit me first. Stale, sour air, like sweat and something rotting. I shined my flashlight inside. There were blankets, food wrappers, empty water bottles. Someone had been living there. I felt this cold wave rush through my entire body. Laura started crying behind me, and then a noise. Not above us this time. Inside the crawl space. Something shifted. Close. I don't think I've ever reacted that fast in my life. I slammed the panel shut and dragged a chair in front of it. We grabbed our bags, didn't even pack properly, and ran outside. We sat in the car, shaking, trying to call the police. No signal. I didn't care about anything except getting away. We drove for nearly 20 minutes before we got reception and called 911. When the police arrived, they went into the cabin while we waited outside. It felt like hours. When they finally came out, One of the officers looked disturbed, not scared, but serious in a way that told me this wasn't normal. They told us they found a man inside the crawl space. He had been living there, not just in that cabin, but in others in the area too. Apparently he would find remote rentals, break in before guests arrived, and stay hidden in spaces like attics or crawl spaces. He'd come out at night to eat, move around, sometimes even watch people while they slept. The officer said they found evidence he had been there for days before we arrived. Maybe longer. I asked the question I wasn't sure I wanted answered. Was he there while we were sleeping? The officer paused for a second, then he nodded. I don't remember much after that. Just this overwhelming feeling of being watched, replaying every moment in my head, every time I thought something moved, every time I heard a sound. We never went back to that cabin. We didn't even take most of our stuff with us, and I don't think I'll ever stay in a remote rental again. Because the worst part isn't knowing someone was there. It's realizing how long they could have been watching, without you ever noticing. I've always preferred hiking alone. There's something calming about it, just you, the sound of your footsteps, and the quiet of nature. No distractions, no noise, just space to think. That's why in late September I decided to spend a few days in the Lake District in England. I'd been there once before with friends, but this time I wanted to explore deeper trails, less crowded, less predictable. Looking back now, that decision still doesn't sit right with me. The morning it happened, the weather was perfect. Clear skies, cool air, and just enough sunlight filtering through the hills to make everything feel peaceful. I picked a trail that I'd found on a hiking forum. Nothing too difficult, just a quiet route that branched off from one of the more popular paths. At first, everything went exactly as expected. The trail was narrow but visible. I passed a couple of other hikers. Early on, but after about an hour, I was completely alone. I didn't mind. That's what I wanted. Then I reached a fork. It wasn't marked on my map. One path looked more worn, the other less so. I remember standing there, debating for maybe a minute. The less used path looked more interesting, more secluded, so I took it. That was the mistake. At first, it didn't seem wrong. The path continued for a while, winding through low hills and patches of trees, but gradually it became harder to follow. The ground got uneven, the trail faded. I checked my map again. Nothing, no marked path, no indication I was even supposed to be there. I tried to retrace my steps, but everything started to look the same. The hills, the trees, it all blurred together. I didn't panic, but I could feel a quiet unease building in my chest. That's when I saw the house. It sat low in the distance, partially hidden behind a cluster of trees. Old stone walls, dark roof, small windows. It didn't look abandoned exactly, but it didn't look lived in either. Relief hit me immediately. I thought, perfect. I'll ask for directions, maybe use a phone and get back on track. As I got closer, something felt off. There were no cars outside, no garden, no signs of recent upkeep. The windows looked dusty. Still, I convinced myself someone must live there. I knocked on the door. It opened almost instantly. The man standing there looked like he was in his late 60s. Thin, pale, with deep lines in his face. His eyes were sharp, though, too sharp. "Lost?" he asked. I nodded, trying to smile. "Yeah, I think I took a wrong turn. I don't suppose I could use your phone?" He stared at me for a second longer than felt normal. Then he stepped aside. "Come in." I hesitated, but I was tired, slightly anxious, and still trying to be polite. So I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not strong, just stale. Like the air hadn't moved in a long time. The second thing was the silence. No hum of electricity. No ticking clock. Nothing. "I don't get signal out here," I said, pulling out my phone. "You won't," he replied quickly. Not for miles. Do you have a landline? He shook his head. That didn't make sense. Then, how? Do you contact anyone? I asked. He gave a small smile. I don't need to. Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. I looked around more carefully. There were no visible wires, no outlets, no modern appliances. The place felt frozen in time, like it hadn't changed in decades. You can stay here tonight, he said suddenly. It'll be dark soon, safer that way. I'm sure I'll be fine, I replied quickly. I just need directions back to the main trail. He stepped closer. You won't find it before nightfall. His tone wasn't aggressive, but it was firm, certain. I tried to stay calm. I appreciate it, really. But I'll head back now. He didn't move. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he sighed softly and stepped aside. At least have some water before you go. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I didn't want to escalate anything. As he walked toward another room, I noticed a door slightly ajar down the hallway. Something about it pulled my attention. I don't know why, but I moved toward it. Inside, the room was dim, almost empty, except for the suitcases. There were at least 6 of them stacked neatly against the wall, all different sizes, all old. Each one had a tag. Names, women's names. I stepped closer, my heart starting to pound. Emily Carter, Lucy Hale, Rachel Green, different handwriting on each tag, but all clearly labeled. A cold wave washed over me. Curious, aren't you? His voice came from behind me. I froze. He was standing in the doorway now, watching me. They stayed here too, he said, calmly. Got lost. Just like you. I couldn't speak. They didn't want to stay either, he continued, tilting his head slightly. Not at first. Something snapped in me. I pushed past him hard and ran. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I just ran. I could hear him behind me at first. Slow footsteps, not rushing, just following. That somehow made it worse. The light was fading fast. The hills blurred together as I ran, branches catching at my clothes, my lungs burning. Eventually, I stopped hearing him, but I didn't stop running. By the time I reached a main road, it was almost completely dark. A passing driver saw me and stopped. I must have looked insane, muddy, shaking, barely able to speak. They took me to the nearest town where I contacted the police. I told them everything. The house, the man, the suitcases. The next morning, officers went to the location I described. They found nothing. No house, no path leading to one. Just open land. At first, I thought they didn't believe me. But then one of them mentioned something that still haunts me. There used to be a farmhouse in that area, he said. Years ago, it burned down. I felt my chest tighten. When? He checked his notes. Late 1980s. I tried to explain again, insisted I knew what I saw. But officially, there was no record of anyone living there now. No missing persons cases connected to that location. No reports matching the man I described. Nothing. I left the Lake District the next day. I haven't gone hiking alone since, and sometimes when I try to sleep, I think about those suitcases, lined up, waiting. And I can't help but wonder, if I had stayed, would my name be there too? I had dreamed about going to Paris for years. It wasn't supposed to be a scary trip. It was meant to be a reward to myself after finishing a stressful year at work. I booked a small boutique hotel, not too expensive, but charming enough. Good reviews, central location, quiet street. Everything about it seemed safe. That's why what happened still doesn't make sense to me. I arrived late in the evening after a long flight. I was exhausted, the kind of tired where your thoughts feel slow and heavy. The receptionist was polite but distant. He handed me a key, not a card, an actual key, and pointed me toward a narrow staircase. "No elevator?" I asked. He shook his head. "Old building." That should have been my first clue. My room was on the 3rd floor, small but clean. A bed, a wardrobe, a tiny bathroom, and a single window facing an alley. It looked exactly like the photos online. Nothing felt wrong. I locked the door, set my suitcase down, and barely even unpacked. I brushed my teeth, set an alarm, and collapsed into bed. I fell asleep almost instantly. I don't know what time I woke up, but it was still dark. At first, I didn't understand what had pulled me out of sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to adjust. Then I heard it, breathing, slow, steady, not mine. I froze. For a few seconds, I convinced myself it was coming from outside. Maybe someone in the hallway, maybe through the walls. But it was too close, too clear. It sounded like it was inside the room. I slowly turned my head toward the darkness. "Hello?" I whispered. The breathing stopped immediately. Silence. Complete silence. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I reached for the lamp beside the bed and turned it on. The room was empty, nothing out of place, no one there. I got out of bed and checked everything. The bathroom, the closet, under the bed, nothing. Eventually I told myself it was just my imagination, jet lag, a half-dream, something like that. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, I almost laughed about it. It felt ridiculous in daylight. I even considered mentioning it to the staff, but I didn't want to sound paranoid. So I didn't. I spent the day exploring the city, trying to shake the uneasy feeling that lingered in the back of my mind. By the time I returned to the hotel that evening, I was tired again, but not the same kind of tired. This time there was tension in it. Still, I told myself everything was fine. I locked the door again, double-checked it, even pushed a chair against it just in case. Then I went to bed. I don't know how long I slept. But when I woke up, it was worse. The breathing was back. Louder this time. Closer. It wasn't just in the room. It felt like it was right next to me. I didn't move. I couldn't. Every instinct told me to stay still. The sound was uneven now. Not calm like before. Slightly shaky like whoever it was nervous or excited. I felt something shift, a faint creak, close to the wall behind the bed, and then a soft dragging sound. That's when I broke. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swung it toward the wall. The breathing stopped instantly. Again. But this time I saw something. The wallpaper behind the bed wasn't flat. One section looked slightly pushed outward, like it had been moved from the other side. I stared at it, my entire body trembling. Then I heard it. A faint movement. Inside the wall. I didn't even think. I ran. I unlocked the door, rushed down the stairs barefoot, and nearly collided with the night receptionist. "There's someone in my room," I said, my voice shaking. Inside the wall, I heard them. Twice. He looked confused at first, then annoyed. "That's not possible," he said. "I'm not imagining this," I snapped. "You need to come up there. Now." Something in my face must have convinced him, because he grabbed a set of keys and followed me upstairs. When we got to my room, everything looked normal again. Too normal. But I pointed to the wall. "There." He hesitated, then walked over and knocked on it. It sounded hollow. That's when his expression changed. He called someone, another staff member, and within minutes 2 more people arrived. They moved the bed aside and started examining the wall more closely. One of them found it, a thin seam in the wallpaper, almost invisible. They pulled at it carefully, and the panel came loose. Behind it was a narrow opening, a crawl space. It ran along the inside of the building, connecting multiple rooms. The smell that came out of it was awful. Damp, stale, and then movement. One of the staff shouted and stepped back. A man was inside, curled up in the darkness, watching us. He tried to crawl away, but there was nowhere to go. The staff dragged him out, and I saw his face for the first time. Thin, pale, eyes wide and unfocused. He didn't look surprised. He looked caught. The police were called immediately. Later, they told me he was a former maintenance worker at the hotel. He knew the layout, knew about the crawl spaces, the hidden panels. After he was fired, no one realized he still had access. He had been living inside the walls, moving between rooms, watching guests, sometimes entering while they slept. When I asked how long he had been there, the officer hesitated. "Long enough," he said. I left that hotel the same night. I didn't even pack everything. I just needed to get out. I stayed in a larger, modern hotel after that. Bright lights, cameras everywhere, no hidden spaces. But it didn't matter. For weeks, I couldn't sleep properly. Every small sound made my heart race. Every shadow felt wrong. Because once you've heard someone breathing in the dark, close enough that you can't tell where they are, you never really forget it. And sometimes, even now, I wake up in the middle of the night, holding my breath, just to make sure the sound I hear is only mine. There were 4 of us on that trip. Me, my girlfriend Jess, and our friends Daniel and Chloe. We had planned it for months. A road trip through southern Italy. Small towns, coastal roads, good food. Nothing extreme. Just a relaxed vacation. We rented a car in Naples. It was a small silver hatchback, nothing fancy, but brand new. The guy at the rental desk gave us a quick warning before we left. "Be careful where you stop," he said, "especially outside cities." We laughed it off at the time. It felt like the kind of generic warning you hear anywhere. Looking back, I wish we had taken it more seriously. The first couple of days were perfect. We drove along the coast, stopped in little towns, took photos, ate too much food. Everything felt easy. The first time we noticed the car was on the 3rd day. We were driving through a quiet stretch of road, heading inland toward a smaller village. Jess pointed it out. "Has that car been behind us for a while?" I checked the mirror. A dark sedan, black or maybe dark blue. Nothing unusual. "Probably just going the same way," I said. And at first, that seemed true. We turned off the main road and the car followed. But it wasn't strange yet. There weren't many routes in that area. We forgot about it. Until later. We stopped at a gas station about an hour after that. A small, almost empty place. Just one pump working, no shop, no staff visible. As I was filling the tank, Daniel walked over and said quietly, "That car's here." I turned. The same dark sedan had just pulled in. It parked a short distance away, engine still running. We couldn't see the driver clearly. The windows were slightly tinted. "Coincidence," Chloe said, but her voice didn't sound convinced. We got back in the car quickly and left. This time I paid more attention. The sedan followed, not aggressively, not close, but it stayed there. Always a few cars behind, never overtaking. "Okay, that's weird," Jess said. I agreed, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. "Let's just change direction," I said. "See what happens." At the next junction, I turned off suddenly without signaling much in advance. The sedan followed. That's when the mood in the car shifted. No one was joking anymore. "Maybe they're just going the same way again," Daniel said, but he didn't sound sure. So we tested it. We made another turn. Then another. Smaller roads, less direct. Each time after a short delay, the sedan appeared again. Always there, always behind us. "Okay, that's not normal," Chloe said. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. We decided to stop in a small town, hoping the car would pass or lose interest. We parked near a cafe, got out, and tried to act normal. About 5 minutes later, the sedan drove slowly past us. It didn't stop. But it didn't leave either. It circled, twice. The second time, it slowed down even more. I caught a glimpse of someone in the driver's seat, but I couldn't make out their face. Then it drove off again, Jess leaned closer to me. We should leave, I nodded. Back in the car, I didn't follow the planned route anymore. I just drove random turns trying to shake them. For about 20 minutes, we didn't see the sedan. We started to relax a little. Then Daniel said, "Don't look right away." But I think they're back. I checked the mirror. They were, same distance, same steady pace. It felt deliberate now, like they were waiting, watching. "What do we do?" Chloe asked. No one had a good answer. We kept driving, hoping to reach a larger town. Somewhere busier, somewhere safer. But the roads became quieter instead. Less traffic, fewer houses. Then the sedan got closer. Not dangerously close, but closer than before. Close enough that we could feel it. "They're not even hiding it anymore," Jess said. That's when I remembered the warning from the rental guy. "Be careful where you stop." A thought hit me, cold and sudden. "They're waiting for us to stop," I said. No one spoke. Because it made sense. Isolated roads. Empty gas stations. Perfect places to trap someone. "We're not stopping," Daniel said firmly. "I'm not planning to," I replied. The sedan stayed behind us for another 10 minutes. Then it did something that made my stomach drop. It flashed its headlights once, twice, like a signal. "Don't pull over," Jess said immediately. "I'm not," I said. The road ahead split into two directions. I didn't hesitate. I took the left. The sedan followed. "Okay, that's it," I said. "We need help." I pulled out my phone, but the signal was weak. Barely anything. Then Chloe spotted something ahead. "A sign," she said. "Police, 5 kilometers. That was all we needed." I pressed the gas harder. The sedan kept up. Not speeding, not rushing, just staying with us. 5 kilometers felt like forever. Every second stretched. Every turn felt like it could be the wrong one. Then finally we saw it, a small police station just off the road. I didn't slow down. I turned straight into the lot and parked right in front of the entrance. The sedan slowed. For a moment it just sat there at the edge of the road. Then slowly it drove past. Didn't stop. Didn't turn in. Just left. We sat there in silence for a few seconds. Then we all got out at once and rushed inside. The officers listened carefully as we explained everything. When we mentioned the sedan, one of them exchanged a look with another officer. That's when we knew. This wasn't new. They told us there had been cases like this in the area. Groups targeting tourists in rental cars, following them quietly, waiting for the right moment, usually when they stopped somewhere isolated. Then they would strike quick, aggressive, sometimes armed with knives. "Did they try to make you pull over?" One officer asked. "Yeah," I said. "Flash their lights," he nodded. "They do that. Pretend something is wrong with your car." A chill ran through me. If we had pulled over? If we had stopped at that gas station longer? Things could have gone very differently. The officers took a report, but they told us it would be hard to track the car without more details. We stayed at a nearby hotel that night, somewhere busy and well lit. None of us slept much. The next day, we changed our plans completely. No more quiet roads, no more isolated stops. And before we left Italy, I kept thinking about something. That car never tried to rush us, never tried to force us off the road. It just waited, patient like it knew eventually. People always stop. We just got lucky. We didn't. I booked that beach house because I wanted something simple, just a quiet place for my family to relax for a week. No crowded hotels, no noise, just the ocean, some fresh air, and time together. It was me, my wife Rachel, our daughter Lily, and our son Ethan. Ethan was 16, quiet, observant, the kind of kid who notices things most people don't. That ended up mattering more than I ever expected. The house was in the Outer Banks, right on the water. It looked perfect when we arrived. White exterior, big windows, wooden deck facing the ocean. Exactly like the listing photos, inside was even better. Clean, modern, fully furnished. Everything felt right. For the first 2 days, it was exactly the vacation we wanted. We went to the beach, cooked dinners together, watched movies at night. No stress, no problems. Then Ethan mentioned the light. It was late afternoon and we were all in the living room when he said, "Why is that blinking?" We looked where he was pointing, the smoke detector on the ceiling, A tiny red light blinked once every few seconds. Rachel shrugged. They all do that, don't they? I nodded. Yeah, it's normal. Just means it's working. Ethan didn't look convinced. It's not blinking like ours at home, he said. I almost laughed. Trust me, it's fine. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. That night, Ethan came to me again. Dad, can you come look at something? There was something in his voice that made me follow him without arguing. He took me to the hallway. Look at this one, he said, pointing up. Another smoke detector. Another blinking light. But this one blinked differently. Faster. And when I stood directly under it, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A tiny dark spot on the side of the device. Too small to mean anything, but too precise to ignore. It's probably just a sensor, I said, though I didn't fully believe it. Ethan didn't respond. He just walked into the next room. And this one, he said. Same thing, blinking light. Small dark spot. Now, I felt it. That uncomfortable shift in your stomach when something doesn't add up. I grabbed a chair and stood on it to get a closer look. I didn't touch it yet, I just leaned in. The dark spot wasn't random, it looked like a lens, small. Almost hidden, but definitely there. I climbed down slowly. Get your mom, I said. Rachel came in, confused. I explained what we were seeing. She looked up, then back at me. You think it's a camera? She asked quietly. I don't know, I said, but I'm going to check. I grabbed a screwdriver from my toolbox in the car and came back inside. Ethan stood behind me as I climbed up again. Be careful, Rachel said. I nodded. Though my hands were already shaking slightly, I unscrewed the detector carefully. It came loose easier than expected, and when I pulled it down, everything stopped. Inside the casing wasn't just wiring, there was a small device, a circuit board, and attached to it, a camera. No doubt about it, a real, functioning camera. Rachel covered her mouth. Ethan just stared. For a second, none of us spoke. Then Lily, who had been standing in the doorway, said, Are there more? That question hit harder than anything else. We checked every room. Every single one had a detector. Every single one had the same setup. Bedrooms, living, room, even the hallway outside the bathroom. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the house. Turn them off, Rachel said. All of them. I didn't know how much they were recording or where the footage was going, but I started removing them anyway. One by one, I took them down and placed them in a pile on the kitchen counter. Ethan picked one up carefully. They're all the same, he said. That's when another thought hit me. How long have these been here? No one answered, because none of us wanted to think about it. We left the house immediately after that. Didn't pack properly. Didn't clean up. Just grabbed what we could and got in the car. I called the police on the way. When they arrived, they treated it seriously right away. They went into the house, collected the devices, and asked us a lot of questions. Over the next few days, we learned more than I ever wanted to know. The cameras were real, and they weren't new. They had been installed professionally, hidden inside modified smoke detectors, connected to a system that transmitted footage remotely. The owner of the property was arrested. Not just for that house, for several. Others, all in the same area. He had been renting them out for years, recording guests, families, couples, kids, dozens of victims, maybe more. The police told us they found stored footage going back a long time. They were still trying to identify everyone involved. When I asked how no one had noticed before, the officer gave a simple answer. Most people don't look up. That stuck with me. Because it's true. You trust places like that. You assume they're safe? You don't think someone would do something like that, but someone did, and the worst part? We had no idea how long we had been recorded before Ethan noticed. 2 days, 2 nights, every moment. Sometimes, I think about what would have happened if he hadn't said anything. If we had just ignored that blinking light. Finished. Our vacation, gone home never. Knowing. That's the part that keeps me up at night. Not just that it happened, but how easily it could have stayed hidden.